The chairs are, of course, Dan and Ron, myself, and Paul Kisevitz, who is not here. The note, well, by now you've probably seen it, and if you know about IPR, that you have to disclose according to the IETF rules. Agenda. We will start. We have a short agenda. We will start with the status update and status of CLUE protocol, CLUE signaling, the mapping RTP stream to CLUE media captures, and we'll have also a short presentation of usage of CLUE with PERC, which will also be presented in PERC because it is basically was for a PERC document. Document status. CLUE framework in draft in the version 23. This version tried to address the security comments from the AD. We need to wrap it up. There is a current text change that we probably will make in the document, which to address the issue of what security we'll use, because the point was that the consensus in the working group was that we don't want to have must use DTLS SRTP, but it must be supported. And there's also must be some there must be some other security must be in place, but there can be other ways to do it. And the way the text that we want to have is that in addition, the media is based on RTP, and thus existing RTP security mechanism should be supported, and this TLS SRTP must be supported and should be used. If media is protected by other means, as specified in RFC 7, examples are in RFC 7201, then DTLS SRTP doesn't need to be used. So this is the proposed text to have in the framework document. There is also for some text to be put based on comment from Alicia about security for the CLUE data channel, and Christopher is up to date on that. He was part of the discussion. So we'll have a revision on that, and that's why it's probably good we didn't send it yet to publication, and we said we'll do it with the other documents, even though it's been ready for a long time, the data channel. The XML schema for CLUE data model in the 11 draft, it can go to publication, but we prefer to send it with the signaling and protocol draft together. So if there will be last minute change, then we won't have to come back and do it, but currently there are no issues with this document. Okay. No, I think that's the text that's in. That's the text that was proposed on the mailing list, and I think, is it okay? Because Alicia, does it look okay? This it's more for Mark to change, and Mark is not here in the meeting, but he will.
Right. Yeah, that's correct, and the changes need to happen to the data channel document as well. But yeah, I think this is what we agreed.
Yeah. So there's no problem with that. Okay. So the next one is the protocol status.
Yes, I think this is going to be quite quick. Actually, it's just a minor update. Next slide, please. We submitted two new versions. 04 was basically a mistake we did because there was some text from the previous version, which was not up to date. So then in a few minutes, we submitted the last one, that is version 06. And basically, we tried to address most, if not all, of the comments that we gathered from the mailing list. And I think that the document is now quite stable. The only things that we have to discuss are in the next slide. Yeah, actually, we need to work on the security section. There's no security considerations in the document now. We're working on them, and we want to come out with a complete, as thorough as possible section on this. We are taking a look at all of the related documents. So we would like to be capable of, let's say, summarizing all of the security considerations that are strictly related to the protocol and which are not already contained in the other documents. That's why we are trying to do this work by keeping an eye on all of the security considerations that we are doing inside CLUE and inside also some related working groups. But we'll have to work a bit on this, and we'll have to ask for the feedback from the other participants. Perhaps we'll have to add some more detailed state machines for the very first phase of the protocol negotiation that is associated to the options exchanging. We just gave for granted that this is a very straightforward phase, but perhaps we can add some more detail on that. And I already had the chat yesterday with Dan Barnett to volunteer to make a double check related to typos and English language and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And so basically this is what is needed.
So when can we expect a new revision?
I think that I will give, let's say, 1 month to Dan for the review, and in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I would like to come out with the proposal for the security consideration section.
Okay. So we'll need to do another short working group last call after that to just to verify. Any other people who would like to read this document? Who's in the Jabber room?
There's Paul, Robert, and Mark.
No. Rob, you mean Rob Hansen is in there? Okay, good. So, I mean, they are also candidate to review that, because at least Paul read and gave comments, and Mark also.
Actually, they are the ones who contributed the most by providing feedback. And I think that during the last month, perhaps we've all been working and focusing on the signaling draft. And now that the signaling draft is almost complete, I think that the other document, which is somehow complementary to this.
Yeah, I can ask them if they will review the protocol.
So Robert said we can review it again.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
So if you do not have any question, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next one is the, if Rob is there, can he present? I mean, I don't know what's the situation. We're not set up for a remote presentation. Okay. We have the Miteco guy here. I mean, okay, so.
And John is going to review it. Yes.
Okay, so let's go.
No.
No. Okay, so now we are in the CLUE signaling. Rob made the slides for that, and you send them. I'll try to present it. So since IETF 93, version 06 produced and put into working class code, made consistent with data model and protocol documents. Terminology matches the framework. DTLS mandatory to implement, but no longer mandatory to use. Security mandatory to use, but no longer defined as SRTP. This has to be in line. This has to be in line. This has to be in line with the framework. They will need to see that there's no conflict, because the signaling is the part that does the SDP part of the negotiation. So it should have the right security there. Limited syntax of H.264 and coding on send only, M line removed as an open issue. Working group last code was review closed on October 21st. There was reviews from Christian, Paul, and Mark. All of them are not here, but thank them for doing all these reviews. No major issues identified, most common editorial in nature. However, some section need additional information on consideration. Order of messaging, example, call flow need revising. So the next action is can anyone who is still in the process of planning to do a review in the
Is there anyone who's still planning to do a review?
I think, okay, so the question is not if anyone going to review. So the changes need to be done. So we'll do the changes and have a review.
I'm saying that's what his question
Yeah,
is.
I understand. Okay, so is anyone going to do a review by still this month, or if not, that's what he says. He'll submit a version, and we probably will do after the changes. We'll do another review to verify. But I think we had so far the reviewers. There were reviewers so far, so it's in good. At least we got good reviews for the document because, like he mentioned, Christian, Paul, and Mark, who were involved in this work, did review that. So we had a good look at the document. Anyone here that is not in this? Okay, so I assume that there's no incoming reviews. So we'll have another. So we can do another revision, and then we'll go to another working group last call to finish the document and send it to publication. So this is also in the same timeline as the protocol, right? Because he said about the end of the month. So it's the same. Okay. Does Robert say anything on the mailing, anything on the Jabber? No, no one is not on Jabber. Yes, Alicia.
So coming back to this, the issue about securing the signaling, I actually don't think what we have now proposed for the framework and what it says in the signaling, or actually what it said in the slide, are exactly the same. So what it said in the slide was DTLS mandatory to implement, but not to use.
Mm-hmm.
Security mandatory to use. But in the document, it says all CLUE controlled M lines must be secured and implemented, lowercase must.
Okay.
So if it's, and this is actually probably where my initial confusion came about in my comment on the framework document. If it's security mandatory to use, then it should say that normatively, and it should also say that in the framework. It doesn't say that in the framework right now.
Okay.
So is that what the decision was?
In the frame, no. I think what the decision currently is what the text that I put on the slides on the status about the from the framework on the framework. I will look at the security section, the signaling, and propose the correct text to have them in line. So since I wrote most of I did the latest changes in the framework, I'll do it the same here in the signaling, and I'll send text to the list for revising that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I'll verify that. Okay, okay. So you can take it in the action item for me to do the security, to look at the security and align them.
What's the action item? In the framework,
to align the signaling with the text proposed for the framework as specified in the chair status presentation. It was also on the mailing list, this text, so it's not
straight text in the framework draft, yeah?
Yeah. They have to be, by the end, the framework and the signaling need to be aligned.
So I'm just relaying Robert here. So he said that the must in the document was a mistake. It was supposed to be a normative.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's okay. But like I said, I will do text and read it and.
I mean, the lowercase must.
Yeah, mistake. Okay. Yeah, but it doesn't still is not the same. Doesn't have the same meaning as the framework. It should be the same.
Yes, but that's not the same thing that you just said because you said you think the framework is the correct.
Yeah.
What has been proposed for framework is correct, and what he's saying is that he thinks what if taking the language in the signaling document as normative, he thinks that is correct.
No, he was just referring to the must, which was he was. I think first I mean, that's for Rob to say. I mean, I cannot say what Rob thinks. I mean, he's on the Jabber. I don't want to talk for him.
No, I'm not speaking for him. I'm just saying
No,
if his,
sorry.
you understand the point is,
Yeah, I understand the point.
okay.
I understand the point. And that's why I said I'll send an email to the list with what I think, what the text should be based on what we are doing in the framework.
Let me just be clear. Alyssa, I believe what you're saying is that capitalization or not, the text that is in the signaling document does not match what is in the framework document. And if what's in the framework document is what we say is is correct, then the text in the signaling document needs to change. I mean, there are people
So
commenting
that
on
is
the
true, but I guess
capitalization.
my point is that there's a substantive difference. It's not just about the, was that meant to be normative or not? If it was intended to be normative, it's a different requirement than what is expressed in the framework. And if there's a difference of opinion about what it should be, then that needs to be resolved, right?
Yeah.
This is where the conversation started, because I thought what was intended by the signaling document was actually the decision of the group, which was security mandatory of some sort, but we're not going to choose what, which is different from what we say in the framework now. So,
So Rob is agreeing with what just Alyssa said. So that
Okay.
the signaling was the
Yeah.
consensus of the group. So
Okay. No problem. Okay. Okay. Are there other comments about the signaling document? Okay, so we're okay with this document, and we can go now to the RTP mapping. I'm sorry from the camera is pointed at me, so there's no problem, right? So I'm presenting from also this one from here. We are in versions 0.5 of the document. The status of the document is the new version is adding a security section, which is based on the security section of draft IETF RTC web RTP usage, which is already in the RFC editor, so it's probably in a good shape. It's not the same text because we have some things that are different in our this way, but it's based on that in terms of the issues that it discusses. And the other part of the document that it's in order to associate the media in the different protocols mean the SDP and the CLUE protocol. There are 3 mapping that needs to be specified. The CLUE individual encoding to SDP done using the label attribute, the RTP media stream to SDP. This is not a CLUE specific mapping. For bundle, it's done using SDP media attribute, and there's specific CLUE mapping that need to be done, which is the RTP media stream to media captures to map the received RTP stream to the current media capture in the MCC. And this is a new attribute defined in this document. This is not new. It was also in the previous version. So for mapping RTP media stream to media capture, for mapping an RTP stream to a specific media capture in the MCC, there's a CLUE capture ID specified. That's what I meant. And the media sender must send for MCC the capture ID in the RTP header and as an RTCP SDS message. And the document defines these two extensions, the RTP header and the SDS message, and also the capture ID as an SDP attribute. The next steps, we haven't, the example section is empty. We need to add it to the document, and then the document will be ready for working group last call. This document is referenced by the framework also, so it is part of the document. So to conclude the current state of the working group before, I mean, this is all about the mapping. Are there any question about mapping? So to look at this current state of the, before we go to the PERC one, which is not specific for here, just to look at the current state of the working group document so we can see that we can close the working group eventually. We have the CLUE data channel, the crystal document is just needs now some revision about the security that it needs to change, and otherwise there's no changes there. The data schema is ready for publication basically. The protocol and signaling we discussed today, they are in good shape. We'll have a new revision by the end of the month, and we'll do working group last call and try to finish with them. And the mapping, we'll try to do the same thing, also to try to finish the missing part and to do the mapping is the only one that didn't go yet to any working group last call, while the other did a working group last call. So we hopefully also will be able to finish that this year, also the mapping document. And that's probably all the documents we have in the working group in order to finish the work. Yes, Crystal.
Yes, we will have it shouldn't affect our work, but we will have an implicit reference also to this DTLS SDP draft.
Yes.
So, but hopefully that will move quickly in NMusic. But
there's also, we have in NMusic also the reference to the DTLS channel, the what used to be the draft from Keith. For open the SCTP draft.
SCTP SDP draft. Yeah, and that will hopefully also now move forward.
Okay, so we have dependency on that also.
Actually, that draft, we reference that draft, and that draft is referencing or will reference DTLS SDP. So that's
okay. Okay.
So the plan is to request publication of protocol signaling, the data model.
There are 5 documents.
All 5 of them at the same time.
Yeah, we'll probably try to do that at the same time.
Okay.
I hope also the mapping. I mean, at least the first 4 we'll try to do at the same time. The reason we were holding the documents, so because if you notice, there's cross relations between them. So instead of sending them out and figure out that we need to change afterwards, we wanted to have them all at the same time and finish that.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, I don't see a reason why we shouldn't have these all into ISG evaluation before the next IETF.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
Okay. Jonathan?
Jonathan Lennox. I mean, I feel stupid saying this at the mic since I'm a co-author on this document, but we should probably, I mean, it probably makes sense to, since SDP header extension has finished working group last call in ABTX, we should probably switch RTP mapping to use that for the.
Okay, the ones that have the same.
Yeah, and that's, so that's,
okay.
Yeah, and it's exactly the same.
And I'm co-author of the other document,
Yeah,
so it's.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's,
Okay.
Just the so I think, it's just use the general mechanism rather than replicating and maybe get some details wrong.
Okay, no problem. Yeah. Okay, so the last presentation we have today, it's on PERC. Okay. Okay, so Christian Grove was trying to start a document about the use of CLUE with PERC in order to figure out what is the requirement that we have specifically for CLUE in order to use the PERC solution, or what we would expect from PERC to allow us. So the draft is the initial thought around the PERC charter item, the PERC which is being implemented by both SIP and WebRTC endpoints, how telepresence endpoint using the protocol defined in the CLUE working group could utilize the defined security solution need to be considered. However, it is acknowledged that limitation may exist, resulting in restricted functionality or need for additional adaptation of the CLUE protocol. The draft seeks to identify the restriction and potential adaptation, and to trigger further discussion, draft assumed that the MDD, which is the central point in the PERC architecture, terminate the CLUE and acts as a reduced function MCU. This is something we'll need to discuss in PERC, but our understanding was that it's implied that it is still have some signaling central point, which is not discussed in the PERC, which mostly doesn't talk about the full architecture. So he has a slide about the basic CLUE flow. I don't think we need to go into much, but the SDP carries encoding information, and the CLUE carries the metadata. Both SDP and CLUE signaling are required to establish RTP media flow. Bundle SRTP can be used with CLUE. The CLUE MCU flow, so CLUE is hop by hop. The MCU acts as an aggregation point. The MCU modified combines CLUE advertisement according to capabilities, and the MCU generates CLUE configured figure based on received configuration. So it's a central point. It gets multiple advertisement and create configurations and advertisement to the endpoints. So CLUE relations to PERC. The meta information provided to the central device is to be limited to the minimal required for it to perform its function to preserve the conference participants' privacy. That's from the PERC charter. Therefore, CLUE metadata available to MDD need to be minimized. However, enough information is still required to be able to offer a telepresence experience. So the first issue, the topology. The MDD can only provide switching topology, composition not supported, implication on CLUE max capture attribute, and multi-content captures. Yes?
Just gonna relay Paul here. Park assumes the use of an untrusted switching MCU in a conference. Will there be a practical CLUE conferences that fit with the assumption?
It's probably, the question is, I mean, the major question, that's part of the thing we want to, again, to address in PERC, is what is really trusted and untrusted? Because when the PERC talk about untrusted, they're saying they are untrusted basically on the media itself. So the media itself should be secure end to end. Now, they want to have some minimum, it needs some minimal information in order to be able even to switch. It needs to know no participant, but that's a question which is not fully specified in PERC, because the roster is not defined where the roster of the conference is, and it's not part of the architecture that they draw.
Right. Jonathan Lennox, I think what Paul is actually saying is more specifically, there's no composition or mixing with PERC, and he's actually asking, is that practical for a CLUE conference that you have? I think it would be.
It would be, yes. It would
I think you can have. I mean, it's certainly valid to have, every stream set discretely. Basically, it's because you just use switch captures only, and that's fine. I mean, it's not maybe how most people would have done audio, but for video, I think it's one of the very normal use cases.
I think it's also specified in the use case. We have these side switch modes and side switch and which this is can be used typically for side switch very easily using PERC. Okay, so the MDD can only All
right, so Paul again. So we need to understand how the architecture works with CLUE. Where does the MCU for the CLUE protocol message live? So
yeah. The MDD can only provide, and that's what's here. We talk about topology. The MDD can only provide switching topology, composition not supported, indication on CLUE mask capture attribute, and multi-content captures. That's what it means in terms of what will happen in CLUE, because you won't have the max capture, which allows you to mix. And the the MCC policy attribute value sound level can only be used with unencrypted end-to-end. This is also true for probably for the PERC in general, because you use the sound level, also the RTP header of sound for doing the switching. So sound level, that's what he's saying here. So there is the MCC, which allows you to do voice activated video switch mode, so which is the mode that's relevant here. Media manipulation. The MDD cannot access encrypted media, therefore cannot verify or filter out embedded text, not possible to transfer images, etc. This is something that you can do in video, which is sometimes, and you may do it in telepresence, like have embedded pictures inside or whatever, and you can take it in the MCU if you look at the information. This is something that cannot be done. It's not very common use, but it's something we need to know. CLUE MDD can add captures. Consumers need to ensure correct authentication before configuring this capture. So this is a point, because it's also true. I mean, in the per case, I mean, you have to be authenticated as a participant in order to get the keys to allow to add media. So there's nothing contradictory, by the way, in PERC to say that the MDD can add media, okay? But it means that it's not, and it's had to be able to have the keys and to add media. But this is just something that's general PERC issue, not specifically for CLUE. As for privacy, the CLUE contains XCOD information about participant with SIM capture. Advertisement may not want MDD to have access to this information. So this information we'll have to look to see what we recommend for the XCOD, which was also an issue in general in the security for framework about what's to be disclosed and to whom. CLUE may contain proprietary extension, may contain information not for MDD, and again, this is something that need to be specified specifically for the CLUE usage of PERC. CLUE relation to PERC issue 2, encoding. CLUE only has encoding ID used for correlation to SDP and max bitrate. No need for SIM to add PERC specific encoding info on that. The RTP stream to CLUE media capture mapping, RTP and RTCP carrying CLUE capture ID, so the MDD will need to modify RTP, RTCP, and CLUE signaling to correlate the capture ID. So that's something that needs to be addressed also as part of the parameters that need to be accessed or changed by the MDD. Yes.
Yeah, Jonathan, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's lots of other things in PERC that are going to need similar.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that capture ID can probably work very similarly to MID or RID or all those things.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. I think because you don't change the capture ID, you just change the mapping to specific SSRC. That's what it is done. Okay. Potential CLUE update. Partially encrypted CLUE advertisement. Basic structure of CLUE advertisement remain. Only potential sensitive information is encrypted end-to-end. Information within capture scene, simultaneous sets, people, media capture is encrypted. CLUE configures unaffected, CLUE option unaffected. So he was just trying to figure out what is maybe we can do in CLUE in order to make it more secure, to have less trusted MDD or MCU in the middle that does just video switching, as in this case. So if it does video switching based on just on sound level, some of this information is not so relevant to the MDD. They are relevant just for the receiving endpoints. So we can look at it and see if we have some mechanism, but that's something for later. It's currently not we're not going to do it currently in CLUE as if we close the working group. Okay, any other questions?
So Stefan Wenger, this is a bit of brainstorming. So assuming that we want to address this problem at all, which I don't know whether this is viable. So one option is what he came up with, partial encryption of the stuff which this MDD doesn't need access to. Another option would be to kind of run two parallel CLUE-ish. I hate to overload the word session one more time, but you know what I mean, right? Okay. So to run basically one classic end-to-end clue thing, which can be completely encrypted, and then have a redundant one, which a limited feature set that
It goes to the MCU.
that talks to the MDD. I hate to use the term MCU in this context because most people associate with an MCU exactly these things which an MDD can't do, namely video mixing.
It's a video mixer,
audio mixing. No, it's a selective forwarding unit or selective forwarding middle box, as we call it in the topologies. That's really what PERC
we need the term for the signaling part of the conference. That's what it means.
So now I wonder whether we could actually do this 2 parallel sessions right now, maybe? I don't know.
Jonathan, yeah, I mean, I think topologically this means, connection to the KDF and a connection to the MDD, or something at least. And I think one of the things that PERC hasn't really looked at yet is how endpoints do communicate with the KDF. And I think there's going to be, a lot there. And I suspect that once that gets, a little bit more solid in PERC, CLUE can start figuring out if it can use that for some of the CLUE channel stuff.
Yeah, and I'm going. By the way, I'm going to present it in PERC also because I think the point that Jonathan made about that we are not clear in PERC what is really how the signaling work and how you connect to the key manager, which you should know about the roster of the conference. Then after we have this in place, we can understand how to do CLUE. Is
this basically about the X cards?
No, it's not just the X card. It's just, for example, if I'm doing video switching, then I don't care for the all the information in the CLUE. For example, the size of the factors or whatever, the information about all the spatial information. It's not important.
Right.
So it's not important for the MDD. It's a question against what is the trust level you want from the signaling entity in the middle, to what information you want to expose to it. There are a lot of information in that is not relevant. We're just doing video switch based on you do site switch based on the voice activation.
Right. So there's like 3 classes here, right? There's information that isn't relevant to the MDT and which we know is related to privacy, right? There's information that the MDD doesn't need, which is perhaps safe to leak because it has no privacy implication.
Yeah.
Then there's a third set of MDD just needs to know it, right?
Yeah.
I understand that the X cards are in the first category. I don't know if we have anything else in the first category. So we may be making a bigger problem of this than it actually is I guess what I'm trying to say, right? If it's possible for the CLUE device to know that it's connected to an MDD, maybe it can simply just adapt its security. Say, I'm not going to send V cards if I'm going through an MDD.
Yeah. So yeah, that's something I think you're right, Steve, and that's something we need to decide what are really the trust level or what information we want to obscure.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to create a whole new mechanism for tunneling data unless we actually understand why we need it.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense.
Reeling Paul here again. He thinks that if you're gonna do this, you need a document that specifies how CLUE is going to be used with PERC, and then he's asking, with all the workgroup documents closing, is it worth keeping the workgroup open?
I don't think that's why we submitted the document to PERC, because we would like to do it currently in PERC, and we'll see. That's something we'll have to decide later where the document will finish. I think that we don't want to add a new work item to CLUE and to finish the working group and then figure out how to do this work if we decide to go on that.
Yeah, I would hate to see the 5 documents in play be held up while we're trying to figure this out.
So let me be very clear. There is, in fact, I asked Ronnie this question also before today. There is no plan for this document to become an official document of this group, right? It is being submitted to PERC. Not for this group. There is no intention at this time to do any work beyond the existing documents, which we plan to complete. And just to say it again, in case people missed it, we plan to complete those and be done with this group before the next IETF meeting. Okay, so we are finishing this group.
Okay, any other comment or questions? on the Jabber? Okay, so, and again, like I mentioned, if you're coming to PERC, at least I have I don't know if they'll have enough time, but in PERC, but because it's the last document, but it's in the agenda, and PERC meeting on Friday morning.
Right. So that said, Ronnie did write this document for PERC, and if anyone has any other suggestions that they would like to make now for him to suggest or relay when he presents this in PERC, then go right ahead.
Send to the list.
Or send to the list. It's just, you know, we have the microphone for a few more minutes in the room. Nope.
Okay, thank you. So I think there's no more issues to discuss in CLUE, and we'll finish a bit earlier.
Make sure you sign the blue sheets if you haven't. And thank you to our minute takers and Jabber Relay. And thank you to all of you.
The RTP mapping.
What?
Oh, the RTP mapping.
I mean, I think I was looking over. I mean, I'm tempted to just rip out all the requirements. For the examples, but we can do that for
So do you want to have a fast with this and some Word document?
Yeah.
I'll try.
Okay, well, you want to we want to finish.
I've actually had some.
You know, like I said, I think it could be, you know, quarter the length now that we know what we want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, basically just use bundle, use bundle and big capture radius. No. Big capture radius. Yeah, I think that's everything. You know, is there anything else?
Well,
Security.
not.
No, that's one.
I'm trying to remember if I signed it. Not here a little late.
Where's the other?